at Lamar, Missouri. His name was Truman Powell. And he was a newspaper man there and an entrepreneur as well. And he decided, let's put together a group and let's go over and let's mine that marble out of that cave. So he put together a group of investors. They named themselves the Marble Cave Mining Company. They gathered up ropes and torches and different items so they could come and explore. And they traveled by train from Lamar, Missouri to Springfield, Missouri, and then by buggy and wagon down to the remote hills of the Ozarks. Traveled in here, done a little initial exploring, and they were convinced too that it was marble. And so the next thing they undertook the operation of was to create a town. You have to have a town with every mine to supply the needs of the miners' families. They needed a one-room school. Did anyone here ever go to a one-room school? Yes, sir. Well, I always believed that the great generation that won this World War II and put man on the moon, many of them were educated in a one-room school. And I think that's a great compliment to them. So, was it a pretty good experience? There's still a few in America, not many. Well, they came here, they laid out the town, they started building the town. They brought in mining equipment. The little town had its school, it had a little white oak furniture factory, and it had a post office. And so things were going forward. By the time they started the mining operation, they got in there, they realized it wasn't marble. It was limestone that was on the walls. And so they had to readjust themselves real quick. More people were coming in. But they found out the real commodity in the cave was bat guano. And if you don't know what bat guano is, it's bat manure. And in those days, bat guano was extremely sought after. It's very high in nitrates. So they needed it for the production of gunpowder. And it was also a great fertilizer. And at that time, there wasn't commercial fertilizer. So people clamored after that. And it would bring $750 a ton. Very well would support a mining operation at that time, and there were hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of tons of that in the cave. And so Truman Powell and his group, they started mining that out of there. And it was selling, they improved the roads a little so they could freight it in and out and get it to a rail. And the town prospered. It did very well. But then by about the 1887, 86, right in there, the bat guano ran out. And like in any mine, when the color runs out, gold or silver, in this case it was probably a dark brown. But when the color ran out, the money runs out, so do the people. It doesn't support a mining operation then. So, but Truman Powell stayed. The town basically dried up into a ghost town, is what happened. And it said here the people left. Truman Powell, in the meantime, went to Galena, opened a newspaper there, and he befriended everyone he met, and people loved Truman Powell. He was an important part of the community, and he stayed in the Ozarks then. About 1889, right along through there, the Ballknobbers burnt the town down. They're a vigilante group that kind of went awry during the Civil War. And they came in and reduced the town of Marmaros, as the town was called, because it's a Greek word for marble, and they thought that's what was in it. So the little town of Marmaros was burnt to the ground, and people left. Nobody was here, basically. About 1890, there was a family came down from Canada, the Lynches, a father and his two daughters, and they had the intentions of operating the old cave as a tourist thing. And they came down to check it out. They fell in love with it. They purchased the cave, and they started working forward on tourism and bringing people into it. And of course, with the limited roads that there was, that was a tough gig to pull off. One of the things that really made the difference was in the early 1890s, a man came here. He was also from Kansas. His name was Harold Bell Wright. Have you ever heard that name before? And he got to come in here because of his health. His doctor said, come here for 2 weeks, twice a year. And he came in here and he fell in love with the people, the culture, the friendliness of them. And of course Truman Powell was very influential in that. And Harold Bell Wright started writing the book, Shepherd of the Hills. He became the first million-selling American author. And the shepherd in the book was none other than Truman Powell, because of the relationship he established. Now, up until last year, Truman Powell's grandson, who was 99 years old last year, was a regular feature at Silver Dollar City, and an incredible guy to talk to. He was Truman's grandson and could tell stories that, of course, no one else could tell, and we really miss him. He said he was actually a little over 100 before he passed away, because he was in his mother's womb for 9 months. So he always kind of claimed that fame. Him and Violet kind of had a little contest there going, and we're celebrating Violet's Hensley's 102nd birthday today. Right here at this, she's going to be with us. But the book was written, it was released and published in 1907, and it wound up being printed in 5 different languages, and it was a smash hit sensation. So naturally, people around the country and around the world wanted to come and see this region of the Ozarks. And they started coming more and more to the Lynch's cave. And the 2 Lynch sisters operated that with diligence. They were adventuresome, and they were go-getters. Now, by 1950, you have the girls are getting up in age at that time, and there was a family come down from Chicago. Their names were the Hershens, Hugo Hershen, Mary Hershen, and the 2 boys, Peter and Jack. And they came here kind of for the same reason the Lynches did. They wanted to explore an opportunity maybe for a future retirement for them, to get the boys out of the city and into the country. They came here in 1950. They met with the Lynches, and an incredible lifelong friendship developed between the Lynch sisters and Mary Hershen. And they were very instrumental in helping them feel welcome and settled in this area. And they taught them the do's and don'ts of the cave business. And in 1950, the Hershen family bought a 99-year lease with the Lynches, from the Lynches, for $5,000 a year, or 10% of the ticket revenue, whichever was greater at the time. The Hershens took it over. They started expanding the roads, making better access to it, promoting it in larger ways. And then in 1955, a tragedy happened. Hugo Hershen passed away from a heart attack. It left Mary and the boys here to run this, but if anyone knows them, you know they've got tenacity. And you know they're visionaries, and they kept moving forward. By the late 1950s, Jack has done a stretch in the military. Pete's gone into the military. And Jack writes Pete a letter, and he says, when you get home, we've got much to do. He said, we're having 400 to 600 people on some nights visit the cave. Well, by the time Pete got home, the cave, people are having to wait 2 to 3 hours at a time for a tour down into the cave. And that became unacceptable to them. They wanted to give the people at least something to do to entertain them while they waited for their trip down into this historic cave. Well, they came up with the idea, let's build a town out of the ashes of the old ghost town that was here in Marmaros. And they moved forward with that plan. They were going to call it Silver Dollar City. And so right where we all are at today is where that town resurrected out of those ashes. And then they decided, once the cave of the city started to open, like every other Old West town, they needed a stagecoach and they needed a train. Now back in New York, in Alexandria Bay, Adventure Town is being bought out by another company to come and put in a golf course there. So they've got the Davy Crockett Express for sale, Coach 154 and the old Henry Ford train. So Pete Hershen traveled to New York, made a deal with Adventure Town, and he bought this coach and he bought Henry Ford's train. Getting the coach here wasn't a big problem. Getting the train here took a little more time, of course, and then they had to build the track and all. So it was about a year later before the train would start operating. But May the 1st of 1960, Silver Dollar City opened its gates to its first customers to entertain them while they waited for their trip down into the cave. They started out with 17 employees, and now in peak season they'll have over 1,700 working here. Well, the Coach was a smash hit. Did anyone ever ride the Coach here in the 60s or 70s? There we go, there we go. Yep, over here. And by the end of the 1970s, the Coach ride was so popular that people were having to wait up to 5 hours at a time to ride on the Stagecoach. I know. You'd be wanting to ride one pretty bad. Wait 5 hours. But, so by the end of the 70s, they decided we got to change the format a little, give people more things to do. They retired the Coach line, the train kept operating, and they put it on display for a couple of years. Now, it's about 81. And every couple of years, the Herschens will have an auction kind of for contractors and stuff of old material, lumber, things of that. The mystery starts here. The only thing they can figure out is during that auction, that Coach was accidentally tagged for sale. And the next thing they knew, Coach 154, the Silver Dollar line, was gone. They had no idea who bought it. They had no idea where it went to. But they knew their first ride at Silver Dollar City was adios. They searched, couldn't find it. Life goes on. They continued working, building the park up to what you see today. Now let's go back to 1964. 1964, my mother and father bring my brother and I here. I was 5 years old, and it was like one of those wonderful, wonderful days. We dairy farmed. We didn't get off the farm a lot, so this was a massive treat. And when I walked onto the square, it was sawdust then, and I got on there and I seen this big, red, beautiful Coach with those big yellow wheels, and I fell in love with that thing. It absolutely got a hold of me and has never let go since then. Rode it that day, met Marshal Ralph Poker, and then we moved back to the farm, and I never made it back here again until, I think it was 1986. And when I come back, you know the first thing I was going to do? I was going to ride the Stagecoach, but it was gone. Well, we still had a great time. Life goes on. Now let's go to 1998. Myself and my partner from Arizona are buying wagons for the movie industry out of Old Tucson, Arizona. And we heard of some wagons that were for sale at an old blacksmith shop north of Mountain Home, Arkansas. So we traveled there, 6 miles down a dirt road, and it was an American picker's delight to come to this old blacksmith shop. It had cobwebs all in there, and the old original equipment, everything was there, a couple of wagons, some wagon wheels, and we bought them while we were there. And then you know how you're going to do, you're going to snoop around a little and see what's sitting around behind. And the grass and weeds were knee-high to a tall Indian, and I walked around behind the barn. There was a metal lean-to, kind of like this. When I walked around behind the barn, my heart leapt out of my chest, because there sat Coach 154, the Silver Dollar line. There's the doors that was on it when I found it sitting under that lean-to. And I was absolutely ecstatic. So I hid my enthusiasm the best I could. I went up to Mr. Wallace and I asked him if he would be interested in selling the Stagecoach. He called his brother, they priced it to me, and I bought it right there on the spot. And then I was kind of like a dog chasing a car. I didn't know what to do with it once I caught it. But as a family, we thought about it, we prayed about it, and we decided that we were going to open an overland stage line from Springfield, Missouri to Tombstone, Arizona. And since the coaches in the old days, one of their main priorities was to carry mail, we were going to carry mail. But the mail we were going to carry was going to be pen pal letters from school kids in Missouri and Arkansas. And that's one of Miss Bev's jobs. She partners these schools up, their classes, to teachers in the areas where we live here, along with kids, and there's teachers and students all along the trail west. First route was basically from Springfield, Missouri, Tombstone, to Tombstone. We went into Oklahoma at Wyandotte, north of Tulsa, north of Oak City, across the Texas Panhandle to Roswell, New Mexico, south to El Paso, and along the Mexican border to Tombstone. 63 days later, we made it there. We delivered letters all along the way. We've been doing that all the way up for 18 years now, and we are delivering mail now to kids. Kids we delivered mail to. And it's been one of the neatest blessings to get to do. Now, Herschel still don't know where their coach is. Miss Bev and I, in 2003, started a radio show, Great Moments in American History. And in 2013, we had been invited to come over here and do our radio show live, and it was like, oh man, I've never met the Herschels up to this time. But we're going to finally get to tell them about the coach. We brought the door with us. We're sitting right over here. We go, Pete Herschel is a guest on the show. And we go to commercial break, and I lean over to Pete, not right this close, but this is my wife. I leaned over to Pete and I said, hey Pete, we have got the old Stagecoach. And the look on his face was totally priceless. He called Jack down. They looked at the door and just the tears were just running down their face. Sherry Herschel came down and she looked at the door and she named exactly what shade of paint she picked out to paint the doors with it. And it was a wonderful reunion. They encouraged us to keep doing what we do. And we've done that for 18 years now. Gotta quit doing that, man. And we continue on. We finished the trip this year. You can see images in Dennis's booth. He's our photographer. And this is a typical day travel across the Western Plains for us, with our mailbags loaded with letters. So I want to introduce these two folks with me right now. This is probably as good a friend as you'll ever have in your life. Everyone that knows Dennis Strider respects him in every way. Retired from the newspaper of 39 years and then followed his passion of photography. So when we're through, go into his booth and you'll actually feel like you're going along on the Stagecoach run with us. What have you got, Dennis?
People often ask how many people can ride on the Stagecoach. This day in May this year in Oklahoma, we had 16 people on the coach. And it's a 9-passenger coach.
Just like any trucker, you run overweight and dodge trailers. All right. And Miss Bev, this is actually my wife, Miss Beverly. She's the brains of the outfit.
Organizer.
Yep.
Ladies, you understand?
Multitask. She says we can't multitask.
Well,
She's wrong. We call her Arkansas Bev because everyone in the Old West needs a nickname. But she's actually from Wisconsin. So how did that come to be, Miss Bev?
Well, as a young girl in Oconomowoc, we rode our bicycles everywhere, around the lakes, just for fun, for transportation, had a paper road. So in my early 20s, another friend and I decided to take a long-distance bicycle trip. So we left the southeast corner of Wisconsin and headed for Mountain Home, Arkansas. And a little over 600 miles later, we landed in Mountain Home, and I stayed there for 28 years. Then met Rick and thought, well, he likes slow transportation too, so...
But the coach can outrun that bicycle, I'll tell you that.
I don't think so.
And your book?
Oh, Rick Dennis and I put this wonderful coffee table book together. It chronicles the story he just shared with you, with just under 300 of Dennis's great pictures. I'll have it over here for you to look at.
We want to thank you all so very much. Special thanks to the veterans that came in later after we get started for all that you've done for this country and the families who share them. Now, my nose tells me right now, Kent Rollins has got something really good cooked up over here, and you know what it is? It's a Himalayan possum. And it's a possum, and he found him laying alongside the road this morning.